Guys, welcome back. Today we have a super informative, exciting little podcast that we're going to do. So, as real estate investors, one of the things that I've always struggled with is juggling lots of properties, right? I've wholesaled, I've rehabbed, I've been a landlord, done all those things. But when I was talking about rehabbing properties, I always tell people the most I ever did was 5 at a time, right? I had some in the beginning stages, some in the end stages, but 5 was really the max that I could handle. So today I brought my friend in, Bobby. This guy claims he has done 40,000 rehabs. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. He absolutely has, and just does it on a massive scale. So I definitely wanted to bring him in. I had mentioned this on Facebook, and people were, they definitely wanted to hear the story. But Bobby, thanks for coming on. I'm so excited to talk about this because I can't do 5. I don't know how you're possibly managing that many. So I'm super excited to talk about it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm not doing it by myself. I have a pretty incredible team that's been with me, for quite some time, all over the country. And there's no way I'm handling them by myself.
Right. So let's back, even before you started doing all this, like, how did you even get into this business? How'd you get into real estate?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, how far back do you want to go? It's a pretty crazy story.
Run through it real quick.
All right. Not the glint in my dad's eye kind of story, but we'll start a little bit further down. In a previous life, I was actually a minister or a pastor here in the Tampa area for about 15 years.
Okay.
One of the guys that went to my church ended up becoming the president of Invitation Homes, Florida. And if you're familiar with Invitation at the time, Treehouse Group, Blackstone, he comes to me, probably right at the start, maybe 2012, 2011. He's like, Bobby, what do you think about this? We're sitting on my back porch having a cigar and sipping a scotch. And I was like, hey, man, I really think this is an amazing opportunity. He was a private flipper, private investor himself. And 2 years later, some life stuff happens and I'm not doing full-time ministry anymore. And he comes to me, he's like, Bobby, I need a leader. Can you help me here at Invitation Homes? Yeah. So I started with vendor management with them and worked my way up managing rehabs, turn, and maintenance for a couple of years, and ended up running as a vice president for a large GC here in Tampa. And Offerpad was getting started, and their first market outside of our home was Phoenix. So they wanted to go from Phoenix to Tampa, and they're like, hey, will you help us get this off the ground? And as any startup, it is a mess. It's crazy. Yeah. You don't have a title. You're doing all the things. Yeah. And I inherited, I think, 150 properties at the time that they had bought an auction, and they were not going well. So then they said, obviously they hired me to come in and fix it. And from that moment on, I helped open every market that we established. And like I said, nearly 40,000 renovations in the last 8.5 years.
That's crazy to even think about that. I mean, so 5,000 renovations a year. On a bad year, 4,000 renovations.
Well, I mean, at one time, right after COVID, we were doing 1,200 a month. No joke. We were buying 1,200. My team was renovating them. We were selling 1,200 a month. And that was month after month for almost 2 years straight. It was not a lot of sleep and not a lot of downtime. I'll just tell you that. Yeah.
So now is your strategy, do they keep these properties that you rehab and sell them off, or are they rentals?
Yeah, so every property we buy, and we still buy a few hundred every single month. Where rates have changed, obviously our appetite has changed because we're trying to make the best real estate investment we can as a publicly traded company. In that, though, we're still buying a few hundred a month, and we buy them, we renovate them, sell them. Sometimes we're buying on behalf of the largest REITs that are out there. In the last maybe year or so, we've started opening up what we call a Direct Plus. It's an investor portal where and private investors, mom and pop shops, up to big SFRs, they can buy from us pre-renovated, or you can bundle it and I'll renovate it. And then, David, in the last probably, a little over 2 years, when the rate hike went a little bit nuts, my CEO came to me. He's like, hey, Bobby, we'd really like to leverage the team that you've built around the country. You've got a reputation in the space for, doing really fast, comprehensive renovations. He's like, what if we started leveraging your team to renovate on behalf of other people, and not just the big guys, not just the Invitations and the Progresses and the First Keys, but opening it up to the medium-sized shops, the small single-family rentals, the REOs, and in I would say 6 to 9 months, we started renovating for private fix and flippers and smaller to medium-sized family shops, which was never really on anybody's radar, and it's been wild. Like, it's been an apps. Last year, I did 1,747 houses for people that were not me, that I renovated for other people. And it was, I kind of live and die by the whole, like, leave it better than you found it. And I love that, that we get to help people who don't
Yeah.
necessarily have, $4 million payroll to hire all these renovation people.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? And so they can rent mine, you know what I mean? Without any minimal commitment. And it's fun. It's a lot of work, but it's
I
fun.
think that's so smart on the CEO's part because, you're looking at a changing environment and how do we
Sure.
make sure that we want to at least maintain and not shrink our company,
Yeah.
when there's a little bit of a downturn.
Sure.
That's one thing and that's a great lesson to be learned there. But, as investors, we do have to be a little bit light on our feet and figure out ways to pivot. So that was honestly pretty genius to think of that, right? Hey, we have all of these guys who are doing a spectacular job. Let's farm that out.
Yeah, and it's
So
wild. I mean, if you
love
think
that.
about this, like all of the big funds, right? They have millions and millions of dollars of payroll established to renovations and turns and maintenance because it's a pain in the butt. It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're constantly having turnover and the amount of people it takes to manage that stuff, people, like you said, you're at your capacity at 5.
Right.
Unless,
Yeah.
unless you're willing to have the payroll. And for most private shops, it's not cost effective to have that many boots on the ground or that many people scrubbing budgets. And so I really do think it was genius, and man, it's really opened me up to making so many more friends around the country as client partners, because now they can just say, hey, I get your expertise, I get your team, I get your buying power, and I get your speed, and I don't have to hire you. You know what I mean? I could just use you as the GC, so to speak.
So, Bobby, when you first went to Phoenix and you inherited whatever you said, was it 1,200 houses or?
Well, no, it was Tampa. When they first launched Tampa, 150 on day one. They already had them.
Oh my God!
In renovations, and I was pulling my hair out, man. Like, what you got to be kidding?
What do you even do there to just get your arms around it? Like,
I think I put 40,000 miles on my brand new truck in the first year because I had to go drive every single one of these properties just to assess it. I need to know where we're at first. And then it's about relationship. I need to find out who can I trust from a GC perspective. Who can't I trust is almost even more important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I had to, be the new sheriff in town, start having accountability conversations left and right. And then thankfully, was able to hire some team to be around me to start replicating what we do. And it's one of those things where it feels like it's insurmountable. But the only way you're going to do it is one at a time. So I just got in my truck and I just drove, and I'd get to the house and burned a lot of miles, burned a lot of minutes on my cell phone, and made it happen.
Well, and I think, again, that, a lot of times people ask, what's the difference between me and my business and Tesla, right? Like the biggest companies, Invitation Homes. And there's nothing. It's just somebody's out doing the thing. Somebody's out actually just doing the work. And like, I would imagine you had to set up some processes and kind of just try to start, like you said, wrangling everybody in.
And we figured out real quick what not to do. And I think that's one of the luxuries of working for a larger firm is there was enough runway to learn, like, hey, this great idea is not so great, and get all the way through plan A, B, C, D. And when you get to F, you're like, no, this is the real way.
Yeah.
The tough part is, for the private fix and flipper, like you don't have a lot of A, B, C's, and D plans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not a huge bucket of money to test things.
Sure. And, I learned a ton working for Invitation Homes on what works, what doesn't work, and creating relationships. But at the end of the day, it was about, as a personality, I'm a connector, you know what I mean? And so I'm not afraid to talk to people. I'm not very shy. And so I'm just going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call until I find somebody who wants to work with me. And I'll never forget as long as I live. So I'm from the Tampa Bay area, and as often as I can do it, I prefer to hire local. Instead of I have some big national accounts, but I love having regional accounts, or like for instance, appliances. I could, at the time, H.H. Gregg was around and a bunch of other places hey, sign this national deal for appliances. And it wasn't as, how would I say that? It wasn't as advantageous as it sounded on paper when you're trying to do it in real life. So I would find local appliance suppliers. And as long as I live, there's a appliance company here local on the west coast of Florida, Famous Tate. I love them. They're great friends. And I walked up, knocked on the door, and said, hey, you don't know me? Here's the name of the company. Here's how many houses I have in renovation. They all need appliances. And they're like, well, you are going to need to personally guarantee this, and we're only going to give you a $6,000 credit limit. I'm like, well, that's not going to get me very far, but that's all I could get somebody to give me. So I signed my name on the dotted line. I think within 4 days I spent that 6,000, and I need a check from headquarters to send it over. Okay, I need another 6. And finally they realized this is the dumbest thing. You're going to do $1 million worth of business with me every year. And it was hilarious, but to get people to buy into you.
Well, I get it. Small businesses have risk, right?
Sure.
So they don't want to get too far extended out. And unfortunately, not everybody does the right thing. That's one thing, thing we've learned.
Yeah.
So what were some of the, other than that, what were some of the, like the big mistakes that were like, geez, I'm not going to do that again?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest mistakes when you're working for the bigger REITs, a lot of it is about a brand. And so they want every product to look exactly the same. Hey, we want same granite, same paint, the same cabinets, the same whatever. And so I applied a lot of those processes, and Offerpad is a buy, renovate, and sell, right? Yeah. So we don't hold anything. And instead of making a one size fits all decision, we need to make a property-based real estate decision. And so at the beginning, I'm trying to systematize, okay, we're only putting this granite in. We're putting it in every house. We're only putting these cabinets. We're putting it. So the budget was, quickly getting too large, trying to create a brand of a finished product as opposed to what we've in the last probably 5 years have really made our money doing this on is like, let's be comprehensive about this house. What makes sense for this house? Okay. What's the best real estate decision for this house? I'm not worried if it has the same cabinets as the house I did yesterday. I'm worried, is it going to match a comp level we're trying to go to? Is it going to be clean, safe, functional, and insurable? You know what I mean? And then is it the right, decision for what we're trying to do here? Which I had to dismantle my way of thinking,
Well, that's what I was gonna say, because I would think to do 40,000 houses, you were on a pretty rigid system. So how do you go backwards and start making those decisions house by house when you're doing 3,000-4,000 of them?
So we would do a standard, right? So clean, safe, functional is a big deal. The other big problem to learn was the insurability factor. When you're buying and holding houses, you're typically in a big umbrella policy, right? So you're not, individually underwriting each house for insurance, but you're, the big portfolio. So now we're buying and renovating to sell. I want to make sure when Mrs. Sims buys this house that it's going to pass a buyer's home inspection. Whereas if you're holding it, you might roll the dice a little bit on one or two things and defer a cost, maybe. So we started getting into like, hey, those 4 things have to absolutely be our guideline. And then from a cosmetic side, we narrowed it down to 3 palettes, if you will. I've got a tan scheme, a white scheme, and a gray scheme, depending on what we're doing to the house. Right. Hey, if I'm keeping a bunch of natural oak in this, Indianapolis flip that's got, oak banisters and oak floors, well, I don't want to put gray paint just because I put it on a house in Tampa or in Phoenix. Like I want it to look like it matches, like it's comprehensive. The difference is I've had some competitors and some other people that are still in this business, but some that are not in this business that would just do that one size fits all. And so it looks more a la carte, like, hey, paint that wall. Great. But you did it in a vacuum as opposed to making it look like the house was renovated on purpose.
Yeah. So again, 40,000 houses. I still can't wrap my brain around that. So how many markets are you guys in? How many?
26. Yeah, 26. If you want, I'll show you a quick map of the ones.
Yeah, let's see
it. Stand by 2 seconds. Tell me if you are, there you go. Can you guys see that?
Not yet. Usually gives me a look. There it is.
Yeah. So we're, the traditional SFR has been those smile states, and we about that Raleigh, Durham, all the way down through Florida, Texas, and then back up into Colorado, Phoenix. We, in the last year or so, we've expanded into Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities up there. And then the last about 3 or 4 years, we've been in the Midwest, Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio. It's been a lot of fun. What's interesting about this is the way we renovate houses in Florida is completely different than we would renovate houses in the Carolinas, which is completely different than we would renovate the houses in Phoenix, just because of the type of the product that was there.
Right.
Like here, I think one of the interesting parts is learning what the idiosyncrasies or the bugaboos or whatever, of each market. Florida, everything's hurricane related. You know what I mean? Yeah. Carolinas and Georgia and Nashville, it's all crawl space. And so when we would hire people, I wanted to make sure I had experts in those markets. So the guy who runs the Carolinas for me lives in the Carolinas, and all of his project managers live in market. So they know they've got a real time understanding of crawl spaces. And the team that's in Denver and Fort Collins or Colorado Springs, like those guys, like they understand what happens in snow markets or with radon gas or very aged portfolio to choose from out there. And so Texas, it's all about foundations, so when we're in there, making those relationships, using that local expertise, like because a predecessor of mine, a guy I learned some great stuff from, and I learned some stuff not to do. He was renovating all this stuff at first out of Phoenix.
Yeah.
Well, you try to take a Phoenix property and renovate a Florida property like a Phoenix property, like big difference. There's no rain in Phoenix. You know what I mean? It rains almost every day here in Tampa during the summertime. So like understanding timelines and code and understanding, the insurance requirements. It was a big fall on our face. Like you cannot centralize the not the process. You can't necessarily centralize the standard. You have to be able to like regionalize that and then hold all of those regions to a bigger why, I guess.
Yeah. And that's you. You're the guy that's managing all of the golly.
Yes, sir.
So 28 markets you said. So yeah, basically 28 people below you, and then they have people and
yeah. So what's really great is I've got a guy who's my right hand. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, DJ Carlson would take over, and everyone would love him for it. He's been with me for almost 7 years, and it runs all of my field operations. So all of my directors around the country, and the directors either own a state or a market, depending on the size of those markets.
Yeah.
They all report to him, and then all those directors have project managers that are geographically hired, and they're handling 15 to 20 houses a month. And then we've got some foremen and some actual hammer swingers as well. And then one of the biggest things I'm proud of, we have about 1,500 sub-trade specialty vendors, subcontractors, suppliers, and installers that are all, licensed and insured around the country that I know, hey, we're trying to leave the house better than we found it. We're trying to leave our partners, our shareholders, but we're leaving them better than we found it too. What I love is finding the guys that I know I put their kids through college or help them grow from, one truck to 2 or 3 trucks, or expand their footprint. Like that matters to me too. And you make friends, when you're doing this all over the country.
Sure. And I think what's interesting for, I don't think there's anybody else that's listening to this that's doing 40,000 houses or even 1,000 houses a year. So, hearing those lessons and kind of what they can take from you doing it on such a high level, like how do we bring that down to, the guys who are doing, 10 a year, maybe, or 20 a year, what are kind of some of those lessons?
Yeah, I would say this is, we call this free advice. The first one is always going to be know what a win looks like before you step on the field, right? And anytime we meet with a client, and if I'm only doing one house for them a year or one house for them a week, whatever, I'm asking them for the recipe. Hey, first off, are you buying and holding or are you buying and selling? Because you're going to approach that completely different, right?
Yeah.
The second is like, are you trying to make this a full cosmetic gut? Are you trying to compete with HGTV? Or, hey, are you trying to remove the dead body, Febreze it, clean it up, and just sell it to a wholesaler? Like it could be all the above. We need to know what that win looks like there. Because I think that's going to inform all your other decisions as the project progresses. Because when you get in these things, if it was easy, I wouldn't have a job, right? You know what I mean? No one would need me. And so things happen because there's so much hidden, but that win has to dictate how you make the decisions when the stuff hits the fan. We say all the time, like indifference leads to indecisiveness, and that indecisiveness leads to ineffectiveness. Right. And so really, to quote Simon Sinek, like understanding your why, it can inform everything.
Right.
The other one, like we totally, borrow from the Navy SEALs. A bunch of the guys on our team, like I'm really big into leadership development. We're always reading books, but Jocko Willenick, not sure if you're familiar with Jocko, but he'll use all the time, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Like we like to be fast at what we do because we understand like what our order of operations is. I hate spending money twice. I hate like, even if it's my weekend, like take the kids out or whatever and give my wife a break. Like, I don't like backtracking. You know what I mean? I do this. And then same thing with renovations. Like I don't ever want to put in new floors before I paint the walls, because now I got to spend more time and money covering them. And man, what if I mess them up and I got to spend it twice? And so, like, when we really, if we know what our win is and we're trying to be smooth, because that's going to be fastest, we're going to make sure that our scope of work that we're writing is as like detailed as possible.
Yeah.
And then really we spend a lot of time with our project managers teaching them what the best order of operations, how to communicate a construction flow, making sure that they're keeping people accountable, and honestly, getting your boots on the ground and walking your butt right into that house. I will never forget, as long as I live, I had a house in Safety Harbor, Florida.
Yeah.
I was project managing at the time. It was one of those first 150. And the house was like, somebody had a tile fetish and tiled every square inch of this house, different tile. I mean, walls, their house numbers, the outside of their house. It was all tile. It was the weirdest thing. And so we had to literally, we chiseled tile for weeks just to get it down to, and I had told them, hey, we're doing the gray scheme in the house. So the granite's going to look this way. The paint's going to look this way. The so countertops are in, paint's in, granite's in. And my tile installer didn't read the scope of work correctly. Over the weekend, he's like, okay, boss, I'm getting started on laying, the new ceramic tile throughout the house. And I said, great, I'll be there on Monday to check it out. Great. And I'm like, you've read the scope? Yep, I read the scope. They put like 4 people all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I show up, the house is 3/4 done, and they put the wrong color tile in. It clearly tells them the gray, and I can't just go back and repaint the walls. I could, but that's wasting money. And I can't throw out the granite because it doesn't match what the tile is going to look like.
Yeah.
And so that contractor had to eat the tile and had to put it all in again. And if I would have taken my time and said, hey man, you've got the gray spec right. Oh no, I ordered the tan. You need to return the tan. Please do not put the tan down. Let me see. And that would be a big one. I think the other one, honestly, is finding people that you can trust to partner with. I'm reading a book right now called No One's Coming to Save You. And I'm going to butcher it's a retired Lieutenant Colonel David, I think it's David Mann.
Okay.
It is Scott Mann, retired Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann. And he talks about no one wins alone. And
100%.
And I want people that are smarter than me. I want people that are in my team. And I would think that if anybody who's privately fix and flipping thinks that they can win by themselves and they know everything, that's where we're all doomed. So being humble enough to say, I need help or I need somebody to partner with, I think that goes a long way. And then those would be my 3, hey, know what the win looks like.
Yep.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and then find somebody that you can really partner with.
Love that. So you're the big boss. So when you roll into town, everybody gets all puckered up, I bet.
I hope not. I hope
I remember working in corporate America. I remember that when the vice president shows up. But how involved are you in, even that day-to-day stuff, or is it just when you're visiting a market?
Yeah, it depends on the project. Usually if I'm involved on the property, it's because something has gone sideways, or hey, the county or the municipality is requiring something that's unreasonable, and so we're having to get in and figure out solutions. Early on in my career, I probably wrote 1,000 scopes myself, and personally project managed those. Because I can't do it by myself, my directors are intimately involved with the property level. My national director, he's involved with the region, and then I'm involved with all the the stuff that comes with having to be a vice president.
Right. So how do you keep costs from just getting out of control? You're talking about payroll. My God, I feel like I have a lot of payroll every month.
Sure.
A lot, whatever it is. But how do you monitor all that stuff and make sure that, again, I guess it goes back to the scope that, hey, 123 Main Street, we're going to spend $22,000, right? Even going back further than that, who sets those scopes?
Yeah.
Is there somebody that's looking at these like an investor going, okay, we're buying it for 100, putting 22 in it, we could sell it for 160. How does all that work on a big scale?
We can't win alone. And the acquisition and the disposition, that is not my forte at all. Right. My forte is logistics and renovating. So our team, when they're from the Offerpad side, our acquisition team, they're looking at the underwrite. They know what their comp level is going to be. We're doing inspections, before we buy. I'm sure there's any private flipper would do. And then they're saying, hey, here's what this win looks like on this house. And here's what we budgeted. Here's what we know we need to do. Here's what we might roll the dice on. Here's what we want to value add. And then that recipe, as we call it, comes to my team. And so they're saying, hey, we want chocolate cake. And now I got to go tell them how much sugar, flour, butter, eggs, and chocolate it's going to take.
Got it.
And so when my PMs get to the house, they're looking at it through the lens of that win. They're not looking at it through the HCTV lens or the wholesale lens or who they're looking at. Hey, so now I got to go measure and put all this stuff here. Where I honestly get to affect this process is I'm managing the national accounts. I'm trying to negotiate, with, we have a great partner in Mohawk Floors and in PPG Paints. And so we're managing those relationships, trying to keep costs. Hey, if I only buy these 2 LVPs, how can I get a volume discount on those? Right. And so then they're stocked in all the warehouses that we use for our suppliers. Or if I only put PPG paint in, what kind of extra discounts can you give my teams if we're buying in bulk? And those are the kind of things that volume speaks the loudest, right? So because we're a big volume player, those things come to us. So we're managing that. And then honestly, from that point on, it's managing the expectations with our local installers. Hey, you're never going to get rich as a painter on my job, but I'm going to pay you a fair price. If you do a good one, I'll just give you all my jobs and you don't have to go hunt for work. And so, I've got, electricians that will give me, hey, new panel installs at a crazy good rate, but I'll give them all my panel installs. Or I had roofers like, hey, I'll give you 60% of the volume in this market if you can hit this price and hit this timeline. And, we're managing, making sure that the costs are in line and change orders are where they're supposed to. And that relationship building, I mean, I wish it was as easy as I could say, hey, just do this. But right. It's a lot of massaging. It's a lot of humility. It's a lot of vision casting. And it works. I'll be honest with you. My cost differential, last year, I was $872 under budget on average.
And I don't know that I've ever been under budget.
Now there's some that we blew the budget out of the water, but I mean, this is over thousands of homes, right?
Sure.
And I think I pulled it last week. It was like on average, my lifespan, I'm $907 over budget on almost 40,000 houses on average. Now, like I said, some of them we came way under, or hey, we decided we budgeted to do this, but we found out, hey, we don't need to replace that HVAC, or hey, this floor is in great shape. But our team works hand in glove with our acquisition and our disposition team to make sure that, we're kicking for the right goalpost, and then two, that we're doing so. I got a funny story. So we had a bungalow in Ybor City, Florida. If you ever know anything about it, it's historic old Tampa, and we were way behind on this project. It was basically felt like it was held together, by termite excrement. And
I was going to say the termites are the ones holding it together. Yeah.
It was 1918 built or 1920, which we had that's not our wheelhouse, but we had bought one. And so, we were way over budget on a bunch of things trying to fix the structure. And I, in my infinite wisdom thought, you know what, I'm just not going to tell anybody, but I'm going to save some money and I'm going to not put in granite in this house. And I'm just going to put in some laminate. This was probably 2016. Yeah. And that was a pretty happening area where people were trying to want to buy in there. So it looked great, looked beautiful. And then we go to sell it. And I had negotiated a bunch of prices. So we're a little bit under budget. I'm feeling proud of this. And I get called into a meeting with the disposition team. They're like, well, this house is a fail. I'm like, what do you mean this house is a fail? Did you see it before? Like, I'd be proud to live here. They're like, well, the comps that we comped this thing on for resale, it had granite, it had stainless, it had all these things. And why does it have laminate? Why does it have black appliance? I was trying to save us money. And I learned an incredible lesson. It's like, you can be under budget and lose.
Yeah.
Because I was kicking for the budget and they were kicking for the comp level.
Dude, the same thing happened to me. I did in Chattanooga here, the north side of Chattanooga, north side of the river is the very nice area. And I'd never done a property over there. And I did really nice vinyl siding. Yeah. I did click lock floors. I did some granite, but I ended up, couldn't sell it, just couldn't sell it. Finally, somebody gave me a lowball offer and I took it just to get out of it. It's the only one I ever lost money on. But first thing they did was rip the vinyl siding off. They
Yep.
ripped up the floors and put in real hardwood floors.
Yep.
And then I had like the center island with like one side of it higher for like a bar. Killed that. They put it. Oh, yeah. I mean, I did all of the wrong things. So yeah, it's a real thing.
It's funny, like, when we talk about incentivizing and leading our people to help, get the actions that we want. A guy named Andy Stanley said all the time, like, what gets celebrated gets repeated. And so I'm trying to celebrate speed and I'm trying to celebrate quality because that's what I want repeated. I was talking with an investor the other day and he was like, well, like, do you incentivize your guys on budget? I said, absolutely not. I said, if I incentivize them on being under budget, they will always be under budget. Right. If I incentivize them on over budget because they upsold, they'll always be over. And the only thing that will suffer is the house.
Right.
Every single time. And so I'd rather get the repetition of get it done right the first time and get it done faster than anybody else. And I will pay for that because I feel like that moves the needle every single time.
Interesting. I love that. Because that was going to be one of my questions is how do you just financially, how do you just manage all that stuff? Okay. So you were talking about doing like rehabs for other people, like again, and how that came about. Like, tell me a little bit more about that and what you guys are doing there every day.
Yeah. So at the end of 22, our largest competitor at the time asked us to re-renovate about 400 houses of theirs that had been sitting on the market and not moving. And this competitor at the time was not necessarily known for their renovation. And we are known for, putting out a solid comprehensive product. So we got out and did that. And man, it's not easy, learning, trying to mesh two people's wins together. But man, our team rose the challenge and the projects that we were turning into them were selling in weeks as soon as we get turning back over to them. And they had been dormant for 90 to 120 days. And so felt really proud of, being able to show our worth even to a competitor. And since then, it's been wild. Like we renovate for, some of the biggest REOs in the country right now. And then some of the smallest private fix and flippers. And it was interesting. I've got a guy named Clint Cooper out of, the Atlanta area. It was one of our first clients that we started renovating for. And, we're doing one or two at a time, at a quarter. And his business has ramped up in the last year where we're at any time doing 7 to 10 a month just for him on top of all of our others. And he was speaking at a conference, a mastermind conference here I want to say it was in Sarasota just a couple months ago. Okay. And somebody asked him like, hey, how are you able to scale this? He's like, oh, well, Offerpad does all my renovations. And it was like, well, what do you mean? And then the amount, he just like called me. He's like, do you mind if I introduce you to a couple people? Yeah. And since then, like my phone has not stopped ringing, David, just in a great way. And like, he is like one of those kind of clients that we fit great with because he doesn't have a bunch of boots on the ground. He's not got redundancy that he's trying to overcompensate for. He's like, hey, we're really good at sourcing deals. You're really good at renovating. Can you do this for us? Let's go. And it's been wild. Like, and he's like a great partner as a client that way. And to flip that side, we had a client about 2 years ago came to us. They bought 20,000 doors, right? They're a Blackstone-owned company. They're creating a brand new property management division, single family rental, but they did not have boots on the ground. They didn't have processes. They were, still building the ship mid-flight. Right. And they were chasing after price. Well, you get what you pay for. And they were missing turn times. They were missing renovation budgets. The quality they were not happy with, which was affecting them leasing up. So I had a meeting with their SVP at the time. I said, listen, we might be 7%, 8% more expensive than what you're charging here, but I'm going to save you so much money in the long run by doing it right and doing it fast. So I said, do me this favor. Give me 20 houses to renovate for you. And if I'm wrong, if we didn't move the needle and the quality wasn't affected, I'll shake your hand. I'll buy you a drink next time I see you and tell you thank you for the opportunity. I think we did close to like 18 or 1900 houses for them in 2 years. Wow. So much so that, in markets like I said, Minneapolis, when I was showing the map earlier, Offerpad proper is not in Minneapolis, but Offerpad Renovate is.
Really?
They asked us like, hey, we are losing our shirt in Minneapolis. Will you please come and do up there what you did for us in Denver and Indy and Orlando? So we, made some hires and made some relationships. And about 90 days later, we started renovating. We were doing 20 houses a month for them. And we really helped. We tried to approach it like a partnership. So the same way that I renovate for Clint in Atlanta, it's the same level of attention to detail that we did for this larger client. And it's like at the end of the day, like I'm proud of the product we put out. We're never going to be perfect. We're going to step in it sometimes, right?
Sure.
But we're going to own it and make it right. But I'm proud of not only what we're putting out, but how it's affecting somebody else's business. And if they don't have to go spend money hiring their individual employees, but could partner with us, it does two things. One, they can focus more on deals. Well, that's not that's not my forte, right?
Yeah.
And then two, like my employees that are hired to renovate Offerpad houses are now renovating these people's houses. And just like you said, when businesses have to change, like I'm able to keep my team together, the band moving forward, and it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship.
Yeah, I think you said something in there that's so important. And this is where the world has evolved, even in the last 20 years since I've been doing this, is when I started, you had to have an in-house, project manager and a bookkeeper and, all of these different things. Where now, we've gotten to a spot where you can bring in the very best literally in the country to remodel your houses. I love that. I would have done all of my properties that way because what it did was me running to Lowe's. I used to joke that I'd go to Lowe's 4 times a day. When I'm doing that, I'm not buying my next property, or I'm not talking to my private money lender, or, I'm not doing the things in the business that move the needle for me. So I think that's fantastic, because we think just because we're a wholesaler or a real estate investor that we're going to be good at property management. No, we should get a property manager to come in and do that, or that I'm going to be good at rehabs. And you joked about HGTV. I can't tell you how many properties I've walked into. I'm sure the same for you, where you can just tell they watch too much HGTV.
Oh yeah.
You just know that rehab they did in the bathroom just doesn't make any sense. It's it's like 19 shows all squished together.
Yeah. They watch too much HGTV and not enough YouTube of how to do it right. You know what I mean? Like we've seen that and have had to fix that for sure. But you're right. Like that is, in the last 2 years, where I was honestly, my first 6 years at Offerpad was pure operations, logistics, systems, and practice and people, right? In the last 2 years, it's been a lot of business development and partnership and casting the vision of, like, just what you said. You don't have to be the expert at everything, but if you partner with the people who are, it'll save your sanity. It'll probably save you some money and hopefully save you a lot of headache.
Well, and it's literally just the rocket ship to take your business to that next level, because you can you can just surround yourself with the very, very best and really use them on a one-off type basis if you want, or, form something like a better type partnership. So I love that.
One of the cool things that we've been able to do is, because we're in all of these markets already doing our own houses, we're able to help some of our clients expand to new markets. So St. Louis, I'm going to be there next week. I've got some clients to meet with and some projects to walk up there. And one of my clients was focusing on the Section 8 affordable housing. And so we're doing a ton of renovations in not very desirable parts of, St. Louis.
There's some bad parts of St. Louis. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know them well. But we're leaving this house, we're leaving the street better than we thought. We were happy for the people that were going to end up moving in them. And then then we had a conversation. Hey, if we're doing this here, and you guys are in Indiana, can we do this with you in Indiana? Yeah. Hey, can we do this with you in Jacksonville, Florida? Absolutely. Well, who do we email? The same email that you sent me for St. Louis. So I don't know, might have been 4 months ago, I'm walking the same houses in Jacksonville for this client. So my team, they're buying 14 houses at a time. And all right, give us all 14, turned them in, and very excited. And like helping them, because some investors like that we've learned, hey, I know Raleigh better than anybody else, but I don't know Nashville.
Sure.
And I got deals I'm turning down in Nashville because I only know Raleigh. Well, we're already in Nashville. Like, so there's an opportunity to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been fun, honestly.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, and because, I've got some friends that do renovations remotely. Like virtual wholesaling is one thing. Virtual rehabbing, completely different animal, right?
Yeah.
So if I have the ability to look at those 28 markets that you're in, like that's fantastic because now I can drop my business, just drop it right in there
Yeah,
and start doing it.
absolutely.
Know that, my God, guys who are doing 1,000 houses a year or a month or whatever it is, can be in there doing that for me. And it just gives me that peace of mind that I know this is going to get done and get done right, and I'll be on budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And that part is fun. Like, because, and this is not to take away from anything, but like, if I do an incredible job for one of the biggest REITs out there, it's a blip on their radar, right?
Yeah,
If I do an incredible job for somebody who's doing 2 or 3 a month, like it's life-changing.
it is.
And that's where you feel, and my teams feel it, like, man, like, sometimes it's a lot of what have you done for you lately if you're doing 100 houses at a time for somebody. And then the moment you just do what we normally do, well, that changed this guy's life and he's on the phone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like that makes us want to work that much more with people on the private side.
Right. I love that. What's the best way for like people to work with you? Like, what do you do? What don't you do? What other things are you looking for?
Yeah. And I'll put up a slide here just if you want, just so that everyone will have my contact information. But here's what we don't do. We don't do additions, right?
Okay.
We have, and it's usually more permit heavy, and it's usually not nearly as fun for us on our side, trying to jump through a bunch of different, depending on the municipalities. Right. We can reimagine any of the existing square footage that is there, and we do it from foundation to roof, everything in between. Your landscape, your cleaning, your painting, your flooring, your kitchens, your everything. And like that part is easy. That's what we do every single day. We did an addition for a client of ours that begged us to, and it was in downtown Atlanta in a really up and coming neighborhood. And to do this addition, and to get the permits to go, we had to remove a tree. And it took us like 4.5 months for the arborist to even sign off on the permit. Well, by the time that does, and time is money, like that's definitely messing with an ROI. Like begged the guy, I will plant you a forest 4 feet over here. I just need to move this one tree, please. And so for us, like the easiest thing is you can go to offerpad.com/renovate. And there's an online form, just a quick little questionnaire, and that'll help set us a meeting. We'll do a one-on-one. I want to know what your business is. Like we said before, I want to know what that win looks like. And then we can get that onboarding process. There's no pay to play. There's no reoccurring subscription fee to use this. And there's no real volume minimum. Like there is we don't do maintenance, and we're not really like the one-off work orders, and we don't do any occupied renovation. It's all, and it's for businesses, not for individuals. So I couldn't renovate your house, David, but I could renovate one of your company's homes, what I mean? And so my cell's on there. Feel free to text if you like, or my email's on there. But the easiest one is offerpad.com/renovate. And we'd be glad to talk.
Love it. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on, man. That's amazing that, first off, that you guys have done that kind of volume, and then it was so smart to pivot. And it's an amazing service to be offering to real estate investors, because we can't do it all. We shouldn't be trying to do it all. Why not bring in somebody who can do it at a very high level? And honestly, you're going to do it far cheaper than I could ever do it, probably in my wildest dreams, because I'm at Home Depot trying to negotiate for the gas stove, and
Well, that part's been fun, and I appreciate you having me on. If I can help any of your listeners, put me in, Coach. I'll make you proud.
Cool. We'll make sure that when we send this out, when we post it on YouTube, we'll definitely, for all of you, if you missed that, we'll get all of his contact info there in the show notes. And hopefully we'll send you another 1,000 houses this month.
Let's do it, my friend. Hey, have a great one, everybody. Thanks for having me.